James' statements indicate he knew that his son had only one friend and that he left abruptly. He referred to the math worksheet that morning as some doodling on a paper. But that was after the shooting. Before the shooting, we know that he texted Jennifer Crumbley WTF when he saw it. Now he's downplaying it. It's just doodling. When asked how many rounds, he corrected Jennifer and indicated there were a box of 50 rounds that he bought his son. When asked where the gun was, James responded, it was hidden in an armoire in the case, and the bullets were hidden in a completely different spot underneath some jeans. We're going to get to that. What James didn't say that day, no mention of any lock. No mention that the school wanted them to get their son help that day, and then when they couldn't, within 48 hours. And here's something you never hear him say. You hear him say the gun was hidden. You hear him say that there was some doodling on a paper, that he was a perfect kid. But here's what he never says. He never says, I don't know how he got it. Never said that. He never says, it was hidden. I have no idea. I can't imagine how he got a hold of this gun. Never mentions that. 4 kids just died. Your son's in custody because he committed a school shooting, and not once do you say, how did he get the gun? And you know why he didn't say it? He didn't say it because he already knew. He knew his son had access to the gun. Christy Gibson Marshall, as we just talked about, heard gunshots, saw kids running in a way that wasn't normal, went towards the shooting, identified and spoke to James Crumbley's son, and you saw that video, how she just stood there. Sean Hopkins. Sean Hopkins was a counselor. He testified that the shooter was looking up bullets the day before. He was aware of that. That morning he was told he was watching violent videos. And he told you that even in a 20-minute period of time, he was concerned enough to call parents and ask them to come to school right then. He told you that he said he needed help right away. He wanted them to give him some help right away. He told you that he was very concerned about the images, but his main concern was for the safety of the shooter. He told you he didn't want him to be left alone. And he said in that meeting, he never received relevant information from mom and dad. It was short. It was a very, very small period of time for a meeting that takes place when you have to come from your work. James was at the barn at the time. Go to your son's school. They were in and out of there in a very short period of time. He testified, they said that just couldn't happen today. They had to work. Now, you've heard the testimony. You know what James Crumbley was doing as employment during that time. And defense counsel and I agree. That is a worthy endeavor, being employed regardless of how you choose to do it. But what's important to note is that DoorDash is not something that you can create your own hours. You can work when you want. It's not compulsory. You can work on the weekends. You can work anytime. Nick Ejak is the Dean of Students, testified that he was also at the meeting and that James Crumbley seemed irritated. And that at the time they knew only a fraction of what was going on. No one told anybody at the school. They just purchased him a gun. Nobody, neither one of them. James Crumbley didn't say, you know what, we had this fight before. They mentioned about the fight the night before about grades, but didn't really discuss it as a big deal. Didn't really discuss the gravity of what it was like for his son, who had one social connection to the outside world, and that person abruptly left with, and that his son found out because he just stopped texting him back. And that he was obviously so concerned and upset that he communicated that to his father because his father reached out to the friend's father. He didn't say that. He didn't say that the weapon wasn't secure. He didn't say that there had been signs that something wasn't right. Now, you may not like what the two people who were employed by the school and had contact with the Crumbleys that day did. You may not like it. I don't like all of it either. But my job isn't to present to you the evidence that just looks good for my case. My job is to present evidence to you, all of it, because this is about the truth. But he doesn't get a pass because you don't think the teachers did enough. He doesn't get a pass for that. And the blame shifting is only meant to send a message, I'm not accountable here at all. Even though I bought the weapon. Even though I didn't secure it. Even though I never got help from my son. Even though I could have taken him that day. Special Agent Brandon testified where he was when he heard about the shooting, what he did when he got to the school, how he traced the gun, how he found out who owned it. He watched the surveillance. He noticed a couple things that were really concerning to him. One, it was somebody that was proficient with a firearm. He did what's called a combat load, which is unusual. The way his stance was, the shot he took that killed Tate. This wasn't somebody that wasn't experienced with a firearm. And logically, he wanted to know where this person was taught how to handle that weapon, where that minor was taught, that 15-year-old. And he discovered that. He testified that the cable lock that was seen in pictures was sold with the SIG, and it was the cable lock that was seen in the photos. And then he testified that they found that cable lock shoved in another gun box in the kitchen in a cabinet behind a door. You also heard him tell you that the minute he looked at that drawing, he instantly noticed the gun. It wasn't just any old gun. It wasn't. And maybe you wouldn't have picked that up. But Special Agent Brandon did. And you know what? Who else would have known? The person that purchased the gun, James Crumbley. Detective Stoyak talked to you about the search. You saw pictures of the search and the house. You saw where the gun box and the ammo box were when they searched the house. It was on their bed. You also saw a map and learned a pretty small house. Pretty small. You learned he had 2 bedrooms. And you learned that in that master bedroom, which was small, there was the bed, some nightstands, and 2 other pieces of furniture. The TV stand, where he found the 2 other weapons that were in a gun safe, a locking mechanism, with the code set to 000, which is the default. Detective Stoyak and told you what others did. He never, ever, ever said that SIG was locked. He said it was hidden. David Hendrick is in charge of the Fugitive Apprehension Team. You learned what that is from 2 law enforcement officials. You learned that on the day the defendants were charged, they left a hotel in Auburn Hills, local, and drove all the way to Detroit in a building that is meant for businesses, not retail. People don't sleep there. And you heard what it was like when he arrived on the scene, when they were searching for James Crumbley and his wife.